Hello friends! Welcome back to another episode of Reddit ProRevenge. I've got two stories for you in this one. You'll hear about how too much power in the workplace can go to someone's head, and how two friends that became enemies resulted in a parent's divorce. I hope you stay for all the stories today, and subscribe for future videos. Sometimes, people in higher positions at work can go on a power trip and pick on others. This story's titled, Complain About Me One More Time, and I'll give you something to complain about. When I was a sophomore in college, I got a job as a waitress at a restaurant near campus. It was a pretty small place, so servers often helped out with other things, like dishwashing and cleaning. There were a lot of call-outs. It was a restaurant after all, and I was willing to pick up the hours because money. So within a few months, I had gotten used to doing everything, and I mean everything. Seating tables, dish pit, running register, and even some prep and other things on the line. I had gotten so good at other things that I was put on schedule for other stations if there were any gaps. I busted my ever-loving butt for that place, all without ever losing my smile, and after a while, it began to show. The managers loved me, my coworkers loved me, the customers loved me. It seemed like just about everyone enjoyed working with me. Well, almost everyone. The kitchen manager, henceforth known as Crazy Bitch, was not my biggest fan, to put it mildly. She was nice enough at first, but began to grow cold and distant as time wore on, and eventually became outright hostile. She was bitchy to everyone, but seemed to take pleasure in going above and beyond with me. A few examples of what she did to me included throwing dishes into the pit while I was washing, breaking them. She ran to the manager and tried to blame me, telling the front-end manager to stay in the office with me while I counted my drawer. My drawer was never off the whole time I worked there. Telling new hires to watch out for me. Constantly dissing me behind my back to others, which I always found out because people liked me. Forcing me to stay later than I already did to deep clean various things in the kitchen. Throwing away my time off requests when she thought no one was watching. In general, this woman did everything she could to tarnish my name and make my life unpleasant. She was the only bad thing about working at this restaurant, and at times it got so frustrating that I went home and cried. The only person she didn't whine to about me was the owner, and that's only because she was scared of him. He had 5 other locations around town, and he just went around to each one throughout the week. This will come into play later on. I've always been an introvert who shied away from confrontation, and this resulted in me keeping my mouth shut, and putting up with Crazy Bitch's antics for far longer than I should have. Now, 10 years later, I would have told her where to go from day one, but college sophomore me was shy. Besides, this was a temporary job, and I just kept reminding myself that I was gonna get a degree and move on eventually. To set the scene, Crazy Bitch had been particularly nasty to me over the past week, and I was extra stressed because it was midterms and had really hard tests coming up. I think it was those two factors that led me to finally snapping at the Crazy Bitch. I had just walked in for my shift and was chatting with some coworkers when Crazy Bitch walked up to me. She asked me why under the ovens weren't clean. I said I didn't know. She said that she had asked me to clean under them last night, which absolutely wasn't true because I had left 2 hours before closing the previous night. I could feel the rage building inside me. I was about to blow up. Not wanting a confrontation, I just shrugged my shoulders. Well, the Crazy Bitch said, I wish you would do a better job of cleaning around here. Something inside me snapped. I screamed, you motherfucking piece of shit, as loud as I could. Crazy Bitch jumped about 10 feet in the air and had eyes as big as saucers when she landed. It was now dead quiet in the kitchen. You could hear a pin drop, and all eyes were on me and Crazy Bitch. I jabbed my finger into her chest and said, if you complain about me one more time, I'll give you something to really complain about. She replied, well, it's true. Alright then, I quit. I flung my name tag and apron in her face, walked out of the kitchen, and walked straight out the door, never to return. The kicker was, I was scheduled to do the dish pit that evening. With me gone, Crazy Bitch would have no choice but to either pull someone off the line and screw up the whole dinner service, or to do it herself. Perhaps the story would have ended there, but things were about to go from petty to pro. I got a slew of phone calls that evening from former coworkers. This was long before social media, asking me what happened, telling me how much they would miss me or congratulating me on finally standing up to Crazy Bitch. One phone call was the manager, asking me what happened, and I gave my side of things and apologized for quitting in such an abrupt fashion. I heard what happened the next day from my former coworkers. It just so happened that it was the day that the owner was due to stop by and check up on things. Upon arriving and looking around, he asked where I was, since I had worked almost every day for nearly a year. He was informed that I had quit, and that naturally led him to asking why. Well, everyone told him. Crazy Bitch was due to come in for her shift a little after the owner arrived. When she showed up, he was waiting for her by the time clock. He told her that under no circumstances was she to punch in. Effective immediately, she was suspended. She had 3 days to give him a written letter, offering an explanation regarding her behavior towards one of the best employees he's ever had. His words, not mine. And if he didn't find it sufficient, she was barred from ever working at that location he owned ever again. So, Crazy Bitch goes home, writes up an explanation. I still sometimes wonder what she wrote, and brings it in the next day. The owner reviewed it and told Crazy Bitch that, after a week's suspension without pay, she was allowed to come back and work for him as a dishwasher. I don't know what's funnier, the fact that she was demoted or the fact that she was desperate for that job that she took him up on the offer. Crazy Bitch went from being in charge of everyone behind the kitchen doors to being a minimum wage dishwasher. It gets better. A few months later, sales were down, and in the restaurant business, it's notoriously hard to earn a profit. The owner decided to close that location next to the campus, but was kind enough to offer everyone positions at his other locations. Well, everyone except one. There's an epilogue of sorts to this story. A few years later, I was shopping at the grocery store when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and felt my stomach drop when I saw who it was. It was Crazy Bitch. To my surprise, she apologized for how she treated me. She said she was going through a divorce at that time and didn't handle it very well, taking it out on the people she worked with. I accepted her apology, and she gave me an awkward little hug before going on her way. So I guess despite the awful shit she pulled towards me, she wasn't so bad after all. Sometimes, great friends can become enemies, and it can end up pretty messy. This story's titled, Kid Tried to Fuck With Me, So I Caused His Parents' Divorce. So, this story is gonna sound fucked up from the title, but just to be clear, the divorce was for legitimate reasons out of my control. I just happened to help the realization leading to it. At a private school I grew up in, I became friends with Dylan. Now, Dylan and I became great friends because we were both class clowns and had a lot of fun with it. Little did I realize, Dylan actually hated me and talked shit behind my back because he wanted to be the funniest kid in class and didn't like sharing that title. Since I don't like fighting and prefer to settle disputes with words, he'd always try to pick a fight with me, knowing I'd never fight back. My parents are disciplinary and strict and would beat the hell out of me for anything like that, so no way in hell would I be caught fighting. He would apparently mess with my head whenever I invited him to birthday sleepovers, such as doing things like hiding my shit so I couldn't find it, and breaking things. I assumed it was other friends, but it turns out it was him. But this is what truly set me off. I started getting a passion for art, almost any kind. So one day, I spent 3 hours in school drawing the greatest panda ever. The shading, the colors, just overall this drawing was perfection. I fucking love pandas, and this was my greatest accomplishment. So Dylan takes my drawing and goes, "Oh, this looks cool, I'll take it." I try to save face and act cool and fake it, like I don't care, and say, "Oh, whatever, I can make a new one anyways." But it was clear from my eyes that I was pissed, and he knew it. So this bitch decides to fuck with me and say, "Then I guess you don't care if I do this," and tears up the drawing right in front of me. I spent so much time on that, and it made me love the drawing, and he killed it. Petey the Panda, I will fucking avenge you. I was ready to strike. And upon Petey's grave, I will lay a vial of Dylan's tears. A month or so later, he invited me to his house for a birthday sleepover. Probably to mess with me, but I planned. For an 11-year-old, I was pissed off. Little did he realize that my dad knew about how Dylan's mom and dad were starting to fight, since they were family friends. And having overheard this between my parents, I knew what my revenge would be. I waited until the coast was clear, and I decided to sneak into his parents' room and brought some lipstick that I borrowed from my cousin. I went to some of his dad's shirts in the closet and put the lipstick on my lips and kissed the shirt collar, all over the collar. I did this to a few shirts in the back part of the closet, and then I quietly snuck back into the bathroom, washed my lips off, and then snuck into bed. The next morning, nothing had happened, but apparently, Dylan wanted to prank me later after lunch. Fortunately, my parents had planned on picking me up after breakfast, so I left. A month or so later, I hear my dad telling my mom about how Dylan's parents are getting divorced because Dylan's dad cheated. I was shocked that my plan actually worked. Turns out, it worked, but his dad was actually cheating. When his mom saw the lipstick marks on the collar, she started looking through his email accounts and found a lot of interesting conversations in some of his secondary emails. And lastly, she caught him in the act after all of this snooping, and that naturally was the final straw. Dylan became a really quiet kid after that, and would rarely talk to anyone. He turned into a loner, and teachers were having problems with him because of this too. Apparently, he became known as the boy with no emotion, because he'd rarely speak, laugh, or cry, or anything. The divorce really took a toll on him. I gotta say, I kinda hoped that his parents would have just winded up having a fight, or something small. But when I started that little domino effect, well, that surprised the hell out of me. But I still avenged Petey the Panda though. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed these stories today. If you want to submit your own stories, my Discord server is in the link below. Also, if you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. See you guys in the next one.